Nyob Zoo Milwaukee, and welcome to our September edition of Nyob Zoo Milwaukee TV. I am Malia Zhang. The word Nyob Zoo means hello in the Hmong language. It is used to welcome or greet people. So Nyob Zoo and welcome again to our show. And welcome to our brand new set. With COVID-19 cases hitting another new record high in September, we will again continue to address health and safety information to keep our community informed and safe during this pandemic. We will also take you to Hmong American Friendship Association to give insight on HAVA's sexual assault victim services. With the 2020 U.S. presidential election drawing closer and closer every day, we will have a discussion with Mainza Tao, co-chair of Wisconsin's AAPI for Biden. And lastly, in recognition of September being Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month, we will feature a previous segment of a screening of the film Save Me, shining the light on mental health in the Hmong community at UW Milwaukee. For current updated information about COVID-19, please visit cdc.gov and dhs.wisconsin.gov. Mental health is still an ongoing topic that needs to be addressed in the Hmong community. In recognition of September being Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month, and mental health being a critical concern during our pandemic, today we take you to a film screening of the film Save Me at UW Milwaukee back in February of 2020. Nyob Zoo Milwaukee TV is proud and honored that Save Me has been making an impact to shine the light on a very hard topic to tackle, not just in the Hmong community, but also in multicultural communities across the state. Let's go see how the event went.
My name is Maya Yang, and I have 12 years of experience working in higher education with multicultural students and first generation. Tonight, we will be screening Save Me, a film that addresses mental health in multicultural communities, and it is a collaboration with multiple campus partners across UW Milwaukee.
So tonight we were here to moderate conversations, especially in the affinity groups, talking about Asian American experiences with mental health.
Honestly, so tonight when we were going through our discussions, I genuinely feel there was a lot of individuals that were comfortable. There was a little bit of a healing, being able to share their own experiences, and also just bouncing off ideas as they were sharing things about how mental health impacts them and how that really that intersectionality with their Asian American identity, culturally, religiously, and how that really affects them.
And then just adding on to that, really a conversation about self-love and thinking about how can we find spaces with ourselves, with our parents, among other friends to kind of cultivate that self-love, and where can we go so that we could start. And I think someone had mentioned that in finding self-love and figuring out how can I increase that and feel really comfortable in loving myself, that they can give back to the community, give back to their parents, which is something among Asian Americans is really important, this idea of family and respecting family and being there for each other as a community. And so really finding love in order to give back and is a good way to balance kind of these opposing sides.
So yeah, before we had these breakouts, we saw the screening of the Save Me film. It was my very first time seeing it. I think it's similar to what a lot of discussions were happening after the film. I think the film serves as a great way to get the conversation going, talking about mental health, the importance of that, especially intergenerationally with your parents as kids, and just understanding what that other ways to seek help for mental health is like, and just getting that conversation going.
And then also, this was also my first time watching the film, and in watching the film, I think it instills a lot of hope, right? It instills a lot of hope that people can talk about this and people can learn from what the film's message really is trying to portray. And with some of that hope, I think there's also some normalization happening, that this is something that happens to people, that this is normal, that this happens. And I think, again, something that they mentioned in the panel is that it sparks that discussion. And if it can spark kind of a thought even from our parents, from our friends, or from relatives who may not necessarily understand mental health, then I think that little thought could, turn into something more. But I think the film does a really great job in creating that conversation and discussion.
And one more thing I just want to add to that also, I think the important thing of having cast members that look like you and having that
Yeah.
representation within that film really drives it home. I'm saying like these issues also impact our community. It's just not something outside of our community that does not impact us. So I think that representation with that film made it really powerful in setting that message or starting those conversations in our communities.
And I think that a lot of times they just don't know that they actually have access to other mental health services, necessarily Western. And I think
came about, and then just talking about it more, and then I came to the realization that when I was growing up as a kid in high school, going through my issues.
Working with multicultural students for the last 12 years, a lot of our students experience some form of mental health, but does not know how to address it or how to seek help or what resources are available for them, particularly if they come from conservative cultural backgrounds that does not really talk about mental health in the homes or in their communities. My experience, I cannot speak for the Hmong community itself, but based on experience, I know that a lot of our students and myself, I didn't know about it until I got to college. And then even when I was in college, we don't really dive into exactly what it is, how it looks like. So in the Hmong community, I believe with my experience, it's a new term. It's very foreign to our elders and our parents who are much older. And so it's not that they're ignoring the topic, it's that they are unaware or don't know what mental health is or how it looks like. And so a lot of time, a lot of our students who come from those communities does not know what to do or how to seek help. And then with all the stigma that comes with it, they tend to hide it to themselves. And we all know that if you suffer from some type of mental health and you don't address it, it may not end well.
A lot of times when we feel it, we suppress it because we think these are not, obviously it's not great emotions to feel, but again, they suppress it because they don't think it's something they should be feeling, that it's abnormal, unnatural. But I think when you first realize that this is just a normal human emotion, but it's a signal for me to do something, and then hopefully finding those spaces, finding those people that you can be comfortable with, being vulnerable and sharing that, I think that's where the healing really happens, is when you understand your initial cues and then creating an atmosphere in your peers, family members, anybody that can help you with it, whether it's through therapy or that's through relatives and friends.
When I was young, my mom passed away running from the war. Never have ever cried once, because my dad told me that crying shows weakness. So I just want my daughter to be strong.
That was your experience, though. The Vietnam War changed a lot of people's lives. We're in America now. We've learned so many new things, and there are so many resources and a lot of things to help us now. We can't keep living in the past. It's okay to let your daughter cry, and it's okay to try new things.
The goal of this film is that we want students and parents or community members to know that mental health is serious. It is something that needs to be talked about. It is something that we need to really address, not just within the Hmong community, but in multicultural communities where there needs to be some form of education so that our communities know what it is and how we can help our family, our children, and our students. Also to let the students know, or individuals who are affected by mental health, that it is not a weakness to seek help and that there are helps out there and you just have to reach out, but when you are ready, that know that there are people out here, there are resources here to support you.
I believe we discussed it was 2017. So I was 17 when I first portrayed the character on stage. As
they as you know, they're seeking mental health services. So it's the same way.
Thank you to Dr. Chia, Inclusive Excellence Center, UWM Diaspora Studies Program, Milwaukee Scholars, Graduate Organizations for Asian Pacific Americans, and the Hmong Student Association for showcasing the film Save Me. Save Me is a locally produced film by Nyob Zoo Milwaukee TV, written by Mai Vang and directed by Soon Lo Vu. All actors and actresses were part of the Hmong Student Association at UW Milwaukee, HAPA, and the Milwaukee community. For screening information, please private message Nyob Zoo Milwaukee at their Facebook page. Stay with us, we will be right back.
Lô yên yên chỉ yêu lô yên, giờ hậu lịch giang lò chỉ một tên mấy chỗ co ha có chỉ tôn này chú sa.
Welcome back. The API community will play a critical role in key states in this year's presidential election. Wisconsin is one of those key states. Today we have a discussion with Minza Tao, co-chair for Wisconsin's AAPI for Biden. Let's go see what she has to say.
Welcome. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Dawn, and thank you so much to Nyob Zoo Milwaukee TV for having us on.
Could you please introduce yourself and your role?
My name is Minza Tao, and I am the co-chair for Wisconsin Asian American Pacific Islanders for Biden, and just very honored and privileged to be here with you all.
Can you explain to all of us why it's so important for you to be involved in this presidential campaign?
This election is so significant and critical, not just to me as an individual, but I truly believe for all of us in this nation, and especially for Hmong here in not just Wisconsin, but also throughout the rest of this nation. It is such a critical election that we have to get out there and vote. And that's why I've put myself out there publicly for this election.
It is significant to our Hmong community as far as who becomes the president. Can you explain a little bit about why it's important to vote Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in November?
You know, I think back to Hmong journey, and I think about just historically that Hmong have always fought for our freedom. We've always fought for justice and equality and equity for us, no matter which country we lived in. We always fought for that for our community. And now that we have such a large and growing population in the nation, it is that same fight that we continue to fight. In the last elections, Wisconsin lost to Trump by not even 1%. It was a 0.7% difference. And when we bring that closer to home, 3% of our Asian American population here in Wisconsin, we make up 3% of the electorate vote. Of that 3%, Hmong are the largest Asian ethnicity here in Wisconsin. So we have the opportunity, this is our call to action, to make this election count, to make our voices and votes count, because we are fighting for communities of color and underserved communities like Hmong, because we still are a very underserved, under-resourced community.
How will Joe Biden push back against recent racist attacks on the immigrant communities?
Hmong have faced it individually. Hmong businesses have faced these racist attacks, these attacks of hatred, more recently because of COVID and being tied to COVID. And so Joe Biden has a very ambitious and aggressive agenda on how he will work with Asian Americans. And then he also has an agenda specifically for our Hmong community in the nation, reinstilling, again, values for immigrants and refugees in this country.
How will Vice President Biden proceed in this new election in the upcoming months on how to protect healthcare for Hmong Americans in all communities?
I personally always look for leaders who have proven themselves. And Vice President Joe Biden has done that. When he was in office with President Obama, so many initiatives towards Asian American communities that were successful. For instance, their healthcare reform during their term, You know, by the time President Obama and Joe Biden were out of office, they had provided an additional 2 million Asian Americans with affordable health care.
How will Joe Biden support the education in the Hmong community?
I am still paying my student loans from 20 years ago. That continues to be a growing problem, and especially for Beikya second generation Hmong Americans, we will not have access to resources to go for our kids to go on to college or higher education the way maybe Beikya first generation students had. And so those are efforts that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will be working on, is how do we provide debt-free community colleges? How do we make sure that all students have access to higher education? How do we make sure that there are federal Pell Grants available for Beikya students to continue on? And the biggest, one of the highest priorities, especially for our Asian American community, is how do we get rid of some of these barriers that are related to language barriers, limited English proficiency? So those are high priorities on Joe Biden's agenda.
How can the Hmong voters make sure that they are registered and ready to vote?
The first thing is make sure that you are registered to vote. And this year, because of COVID, we know how challenging everything has been. Our systems have been turned upside down. However, I just want to urge everyone to do early voting. So you can request early voting ballot through mail. You can then mail it into your local clerk's office, or you could even drop it off there. And you can find your drop-off locations at iwillvote.com/WI. And make sure you follow the instructions, and the instructions are very simple. Early voting in person also starts in October, on October 20th to be specific. So that is another option. If you're not comfortable with mailing in your ballot, vote early. And of course, make sure you mask up when you go vote.
Let's all do our part and get out to vote. Lastly, is there any website or resources that you can provide us if anybody else has questions?
Yes, voter information, again, is on iwillvote.com/WI. And then also additional information, and I urge all of the Hmong community and Beikya Asian American communities, go on to Joe Biden's website, joebiden.com. There you will find Joe Biden's agenda on how he will work with Beikya Asian American communities. And again, you will find our agenda for how he will vote with the Hmong community here in the nation. So thank you so much. Thank you all for making sure that you get out there to vote. Thank you also for helping friends, family, neighbors, colleagues go out there and get the vote out again as well.
Thank you, Mainza, for your time and for being a champion advocate for our Hmong community to get involved in politics. For more information on the Biden-Harris campaign, go to joebiden.com. For voting information, please visit iwillvote.com. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Asian Fusion, 1609 East North Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Traditional and authentic cuisine, seasoned with fresh herbs and spices. Experienced, trained specialty chefs. Asian Fusion, 1609 East North Avenue, Milwaukee.
Welcome back. According to RAINN.org, every 73 seconds an American is sexually assaulted. Within the Hmong community, sexual assault is a very hard topic to discuss due to cultural gaps, lack of resources, lack of ongoing data, and support. Today, we take you to Hmong American Friendship Association to give you some insight on their program to help victims of sexual violence.
Sexual violence is any sexual interaction or behavior happening without that person's consent. Sexual violence is not only physical but also verbal. You can recognize it if you see someone feeling uncomfortable with the way they're being treated. The negative impacts that people who have been experiencing sexual violence are mental breakdown that can lead to suicidal attempts and depression that causes abnormal behavior that could change their life.
It is hard to say that men get sexually assaulted because he is mostly considered the dominant partner. However, there are incidents happen out there, and stigma would be that survivors feel ashamed to speak up and to be looked down upon.
Some barriers are that they may be blaming themselves for what happened, feeling like no one would understand, or too ashamed to report what happened. Victim blaming is when the victim is blamed for what happened. This is an issue because it can worsen the symptoms the victim already has. It can also increase guilt, leaving the victim more distant from his or her own feelings and making it more difficult to communicate with others and eventually stand in the way of recovery.
It is important to address sexual violence in our community because sexual violence can greatly affect people's life in many different ways and different levels. Physical health, emotional, psychological health, social lifestyle, sexual health, and spiritual or religious health. Therefore, it is important to make sure that we find ways to help our community to stay healthy and productive.
So before we start, let's think. What are some landscapes or maybe even skyscrapers that really feel like watching a sunset or a sunrise? Just say one or two settings.
With the different support services that we offer, we have a high hope that our clients, number one, can feel safe, and number two, can have a place to turn to for help in their healing process.
Alpha Sexual Assault Prevention Program provide one-on-one advocacy, emotional support, assistance with protective care, assistance with protective orders, court advocacy, guidance through the criminal justice system, safety plans, community resource, 24-hour hotline, referrals if needed, counseling, case managing, transportation, whether it's to court, doctor's appointment, interpretations for your needs. We also have an emergency funds program that helps with food, sheltering, renting, gas, support groups, which are 48 sessions a year. That includes self-care, cooking, exercising, emotional support, and it's open to the public.
Don't lose hope. You're not alone. We care about you.
Seek help before it's too late.
Please call 414-322-9522 if you need help.
We thank HAFA for providing this valuable and much-needed service to help our community. For more information, please visit mpongfriendship.org. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Trở lại tới giá có tu nói là, chú kế số bé sinh chuyện kiến hiện chú bé dễ dàng, lúc sai kế phá xử lệ chế cụ mò hay chế cần đỡ. Nếu như chuyện kiến hiện chú có chế tơ này, hay lựa tu nhớ hữu có chế này. Vì đến đỡ dùng trong số số lên, thọ có xong đỡ số bé sinh. Hay chỉ sau nó cả hạ ta chú kế số bé sinh nội yếu chi nụ, sẽ có bây giờ bé sinh America, có cho credit cards, là xí có tên đóng đỡ hữu chế cho nha. Kế số bê sinh nó ô dùng gì, sang hồn đỡ internet là hữu sự tông lối yên tàu, cho giờ chỉ có cho nhau sư, cho nên đỡ ô nô cả.
Welcome back. September delivers a new record high of COVID-19 cases in Wisconsin, more than double of August high. On September 18th, 2,533 positive COVID-19 cases were reported. On that note, we want to share this video with you to show you how to keep you and your family healthy and safe.
Beijing battle có chỉ bù tu cá mò COVID-19 thua tàu, và trở đi do tí thái nó chuan hu, do bát chia kỳ sĩ kỳ, yon trong hai cõi do tính ninh hậu có lúc chế và ý giả linh đỡ nó thia. Yon chiến lưu nó chẳng kinh hình trâu cho lào, thế cho nên mua mò nhà tàu để lò lợi. Khó ý, chỉ thoát giá tì do tính ninh mua mò, do có mua mò lợi, do trường nhỏ chế trước hiệu do mùi cư không mò xứ. Khó ó, xin đớn bồn giao thổ nông thiết xã, thiên mua đại đỡ bỏ chê cho họ thông khi nhé. Khó bế, nguồn chúa có giải tên cho xâm bụ thế đây, duồn đế ly nên gõ phênh, chẳng kinh trai cho tỏ ca con chuan dư, nông thiết xã, mù xí chế đây ta lò, thế vấn đề yếu nó mó lò xí bà khổng nọ. Sai bế đại video có dân chúa tề, yếu chỉ mua xâm bụ thế đây nhỏ nha kê, có sĩ cho chua so tệ ở mua chở chơi cơ lò do trò gạo %. Ta sĩ do con chúa tệ tàu, mà chúa tệ yên dùng đùa sĩ chua so tệ. Khó lâu, so thiết tùa ca mó chỉ chê đỡ tê chờ thiết giả khổng con của tùa họ có lúc chê. Xử lý, trông, xanh, chờ tùa tờ tên, bó khó trông, cái đê thiết tù tệ khi đã trò khổng. Khó chí, ở trở lý ghé nhỏ xin lưu đây là sĩ social distancing. Giờ có yếu chủ tàu tờ hậu chế một khó thư, yếu chủ nhỏ trâu có chuẩn lưu đây tờ lưu lên lưu tù. Chỉ bú mua khoa tô hậu có chế, chỉ cho một trái lưu tù, tỏ lưu tây chế tí xì, chỉ bú xí sầu nhỏ ở ghé tây bá. Lưu phong hậu Center for Disease and Control là do CDC, cú hành dĩ hay tìa, có cho đánh đau bỏ khỏng dâu khỏng rư thầu có mùi đầu tây chờ mua tiếng nền giống và khó dùa nhỏ xin rư đê trao câu chùa dùa nhỏ vì chứ tìa dùa có mùi tỏ chế dùa khủng nọ có dùa sĩ tên tao có mua nhỏ hậu có lưu chế lộ và xứ lọ yên tàu mùi sái tàu hậu cdc.gov có mua chữ gì báo ua đánh bỏ khỏng dâu khỏng rư thiết lọ cu tàu. Tây thành nó yếu bá tàu có training chỉ mua sự xanh, thế nó cá nhớ rồng thế chính thua ca mò COVID-19.
We thank you again for joining us today. Please follow us on our Facebook page and watch our past stories on our YouTube channel. Until next time, we wish everyone good health, safety, and may our community be blessed and inspired.